Good morning, my Kenyan brethren, or should I say habari yako. Hi, my name is Mike Reed, in case you don't remember. Brother Ryan has asked Ben and I and himself will be giving you instructional videos over the coming weeks or months until we can get over to be with you. And what he's asked us to do first is to give you a testimony, our personal testimony, because it's really important that we examine our testimonies. As we talked about, I think, with the gospel course, but we'll talk about in the role of a pastor is, the first qualification of a pastor is that they're a Christian. I know that sounds funny, but it's true. Salvation, being reborn, being given a new heart is something that needs to have happened in a person's life in order to be a Christian and therefore in order to be a pastor. So I grew up in a athletic family. My dad coached a sport, basketball, which you don't do a lot of in Kenya, but you know of basketball. And so we were a very athletic family, and my God was success. I did not grow up in the church. A little bit, had a little understanding of God and Jesus' name, but certainly church was not part of my upbringing. But my God was success, and I was successful in most ways. I was successful as an athlete. I played basketball at a very high level. And in our country, for someone of my height and ethnicity to play high-level basketball is unusual. I was a good student. I got out of college. I made a lot of money. I was a stockbroker, investing people's money, and I made a good living, a lot of money. And none of those things, success being my God, never fulfilled me. I was a miserable man. I was an adulterer. I was a drunk. I was a liar. I was dishonest in many ways. I loved myself, and I was miserable. And at one of the jobs I had a guy sitting next to me that would be inviting me to church, and I would never go to church. I would make fun of church. I would sit around and make fun of in my arrogance. I'd be wise in my own eyes and make fun of church. And my life was a wreck. I had lost a bunch of money gambling. I was very depressed, if you will. My life was a wreck, and this man kept asking me to come, and I said, okay, well, he asked me to go to a Christmas program. So I went to a Christmas program, and the music was great. I loved the music, and I thought, well, any church that plays that kind of music I could go to. So I started going to that church, hoping to get new clients because it was a big church, about 2,500 people. And I went to church for about a year, and they never preached the gospel at that church, really, but I heard the Bible. I heard about a better life now, basically, is what was being preached, which wasn't the gospel. And I went to something called Promise Keepers. I went to a men's conference with 12,000 men, and I actually heard the gospel for the first time. What I understood was that, and this was on September 11th. Actually, September 8th is when I went to the conference. I heard the gospel and heard that I was a sinner. And my problem wasn't my lack of fulfillment in this life. My problem was my sin, and that I was separated from God, and that's why I was miserable. And I heard of my need for Jesus Christ. Well, then that Tuesday was September 11th, and the events of that day had me to understand that those people who had flown into the building that killed the 3,000 Americans, those people did not have another chance to get right with God. And what I came to understand that day is if I had been in those buildings and I had died, I wasn't right with God, and I was destined for hell, and I needed forgiveness. But I didn't know what to do about that. So that night I went to a prayer vigil at the church I was attending, and at that prayer vigil, they were praying, and one of the things that became, God just showed me my sin and my need for Christ. I found myself flat on the floor, crying like a baby, begging for mercy. I was begging God for mercy. Please give mercy to my soul. I need mercy. For about 20 minutes, fast forward in my mind, all the sins of my life, specific sins, just like vomiting out of me, and seeking God's forgiveness. And God granted me mercy in that moment. God gave me a new heart. I stood up from that floor, and I was a different man. I had put my faith and trust in Jesus Christ, and I was a new creation. The Bible says you must be a new creation. The old was gone, and now my life is lived imperfectly, but my life is lived for the grace and the glory of God and the grace of Jesus Christ and the gospel that is to be preached. That's why I come to Kenya. That's a brief testimony of my story. My time is going to be up in this video. I love you. God bless.